Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Tuesday of Career Clarity and Confidence Live. And it is the first day of Women's History Month. I have an expert guest with us today. I'm so excited about what we're going to talk about. And I know a lot of you are excited about what we're going to talk about. I have Jacqueline Hawk with me. She is a corporate veteran, just like me. We were corporate veterans and then we left. She's a communications coach and she is the founder of Power of the Ask. And I'm so excited that we're just going to talk about and demystify and hopefully validate just all of the gunk that y'all got around asking. So without delay, Jacqueline, welcome. I would just love if maybe you would just tell us your story, how you got to where you're at and how the Power of the Ask was born.
Happy to, because I'll use your phrase. It started with a lot of gunk, and I'll share some details that I bet the women would resonate with. But the headline story that I like to share too is I was a corporate veteran. I had a 16-year career in corporate America. I was working with startups and venture firms and all these things people think is great. It wasn't because I didn't have what I wanted. It was actually because I made my situation work for me, having a corporate career, having a family, having relationships. And it was all down to this 4-step power of the ask, because I went from this massive shift, and I can go into some details, to actually understanding what I wanted and how to ask for it without the gunk, fear, guilt, imposter syndrome, all these things. And I went, all right, I figured this out. I see so many women struggling. Like, how can I help them? And how can I create a new normal? But I'll share some details of the story that even actually articulates like why and how it came about. Cause it's kind of funny. And it was like oh, this is really powerful kind of moment. Yeah. And you alluded to this, like a lot of it starts when we were young, and myself included. Like, I was born in Southern California, great family, super traditional community. And it was work hard, get good grades, excel at your sports, go to college, graduate in 4 years, thrive. Well, part of that was don't ask questions, don't get fired. Just like put your head down. Don't be aggressive, be grateful for what you've got. All of those things that I think a lot of us women are taught in family, cultural norms, the list is really long. Well, when I did that, it didn't work. I was overworked. I was underappreciated. The first time I was up for promotion, which was only a year and a half into my career, I was passed up and told point blank, I didn't ask for it. Like, that was one of the sole reasons. Was this woman had, I think it was 8 absolutely qualified people, and she wanted to know I wanted it. So she was like, you didn't get it? You didn't ask. I was underpaid, I found out at one point by like 50%. I burned out twice. I had anxiety and depression. And for many women I know in the corporate realm, and this goes for even startups and everything else, I think a lot of us realize we want a career, but we do not want that traditional path, right? It's like, how can I make this actually work for me? But there isn't an example. And I was in all of that. And when I even think about having a relationship, there wasn't space for it. Right. I was working too hard. So it took me about 30 years to kind of go, this isn't working. And also realizing I wasn't stopping to think about, what do I want? And actually asking for it. Because I also had all those little, internal narratives. So that's what I'm sure a lot of women can relate to. But it's also where the power of the ask system comes in, because I think it was a combination of just exhausted and stubbornness of like, I cannot tolerate this any longer. Like, something's got to give. So I started tinkering, and I really came up with these 4 steps of, oh, here's how I figure out what I want. Here's how I ask for it and do it in a way that really gets a yes while still feeling authentic. And a lot of women then say, well, what did that lead to? Well, and I love, it's like, this seemed like my norm. So other women are reminding me, like, share this. I designed full scratch my last 3 roles in corporate America. I negotiated a 20% and a 50% pay raise at other times for more direct reports to support my team. I actually used to use my 4 weeks of vacation. So whether you get 4 weeks or 2 weeks, it's about actually taking it. And then have a great marriage and family, and just am able to transition seamlessly, even down to, negotiating a playgroup spot because it works with my daughter's schedule and otherwise doesn't derail our day. So that all led to the power of the ask, because women would say, well, how did you do that? Yes. And it just became a phrase. It's all in the power of the ask. And when I finally went, oh, this is really, there's something to this. And other women are having the struggle, but they don't have the mindset and the strategies. I was like, that's it. I'm packaging this up, and I am going to coach women on how to actually ask for what they want so they get their yes and everybody thrives, like including the companies that they work for, because we're all in power.
Ooh, I love it. And if you're joining us, drop us like, a heart, whatever. If any of this even resonates with you, like just let us know. And
And I want to know what women want to ask for too. Like
what's
if you
that?
feel like commenting, like what do you want to ask for?
Yes, ask
What
us
is
anything. This
your
is a
wish?
great chance to practice your asks, and we'll save all the questions to the end, but drop them in the comments and ask us what you want to know about asking. And this is actually a little, I always tell women when they're, getting comfortable practicing asks, and then we'll hear what Jacqueline has to say too, is practice your asks when the stakes are low, because that way when the stakes are high, you have repetitions under your belt. So this is a low stakes way to practice your ask. So drop the asks in the comments, the questions that you have.
Beautiful.
All right. So you unloaded so much goodness on us. You talked about how to get clear on what you want, how to ask for what you want in a way that feels in alignment to you. And then you also then talked about like results. Like you didn't just enjoy the results yourself personally, but like your family benefits, like your company benefits. So like let's just unpack this. But before you kind of give your 4-step process, I want you to talk a little bit more about, now that you're working more with women, what do you feel like you see keeps women from asking? Like what gets in the way? We know we've got some messages, but when they actually get to the ask, like,
Yeah.
what keeps them silent?
Well, I think it's even before that. So one of the things that I had realized is asking starts way, way much sooner than actually opening our mouth. And I think that's a big misconception of we actually need to prepare. So there are a number of things that stand in their way, but if we really get to the heart of it, 100% of the women I talk to, one of the first things they need is actual clarity on what they want. So there's a general idea, sometimes even a loose idea. Like I'm thinking of a couple of working moms that I've been working with, and they're spread so thin. They're like, I need a little bit more like flexibility or something, but what does that actually look like? So this idea of let's pause and actually think about what you want versus just being able to articulate what you don't want. And given all the belief work and stuff that we do, if we talk just about what we don't want and what's not working, we're actually going to stay there. So there's this really big piece of like, what do you want? Like full stop. And even often sitting down and thinking through that is going to help women. It does help women just tremendously. So taking that pause from our really, really busy schedules to think about it also builds confidence. It feels empowering. It's kind of all the things that often gets overlooked. Even women that think they're clear on what it is when we dive into it. So,
okay, so I have a question for you, because this is what I experience with my clients. So one of my favorite mantras is success loves clarity. But clarity is vulnerable because you can't hide behind ambiguity any longer. So how, in your framework, do you help women own the vulnerability that is clarity? Because when you're clear on what you want, like, I don't know about y'all, you can comment, or how you feel, Jacqueline, but that can be kind of scary to put that out into the world, because when you put it into words, that in and of itself can be like, oh, I can't believe I'm actually going to admit this or say this out loud. So I'd love to hear your experience with how you work with women. Like, oh, how do I even get clear, live with that vulnerability of getting clear?
I just got full body chills, like hearing you talk about that. Cause even for me, and here's the thing to say, like, I do this all the time, but I still get those moments. So there's a big piece that's important to understand. Some of those thoughts and like little fears, they may not entirely go away, especially if they're big and deep. But it's about learning to also move past them, to be able to kind of feel that, and instead of crumble, rise and still go forward. So I want to honor that, because even as I got my own little chills, I was like, okay, like let's move past it. And the things you're talking about are bits and pieces of the 4 steps. So I love it that where your head is going is actually validating, like, this is why this works. So to answer your question, a big piece of it too is just acknowledging it. I think, and it sounds so simple, but I think there's so much beauty and power and simplicity. Because oftentimes, and myself included, I used to go, oh, I don't want to go there. Oh, I don't want to deal with it. I want to shove it aside. And then it actually just gains more power. It becomes a stronger, I talk about like an invisible ball and chain that holds us back, versus actually just acknowledging it. I also believe that those fears contain messages for us. What am I afraid of? What is that actually telling me? And then also fact checking it. Like, is that really going to happen? You think a lot about the scripts we tell ourselves. I'm going to be seen as aggressive. Nobody's going to give it to me. There isn't a role model, so I can't do it. All these things. Well, sometimes you pause and you're like, is that really going to happen? A lot of the times it won't. So there's a lot of ways and a lot of depth, because this piece of actually how to deal with, I call them our internal obstacles. It's big and deep. It's often the elephant in the room, but those are just some like high level strategies of just acknowledge it's going to be there, kind of listen to it, see what messages it has, maybe just, work with it instead of against it.
Yeah, I love it because sometimes that's the hardest part. Okay, so
Yeah.
say more. Give us like some of your best tips. Like just talk maybe quickly about what is the power of the ask. Share the framework a little bit, and like what are some of the best tips you have for women to asking, and then we'll talk about at the end like what results they can get from that.
Yeah. So the power of the ask is a 4-step system that teaches you how to get clear on what you want and how to actually ask for it. And I love the phrases to ask clearly, confidently, and convincingly.
Mhm.
Also, without everything we're talking about, without fear, guilt, and imposter syndrome. Like, I feel like those are the 3 big things that usually come up for women and hold them back. So it's literally a step-by-step system. And the way that I have laid it out, and I tinkered with the order for a really long time, was around 1, there's this piece of, oh my God, I don't know what I want. So how do you actually get clear on what you want? And then that leads to this piece of, well, how do I articulate it? And I've got to say, even the most confident women that I have run into, they struggle or don't ask for what they want because they're like, I don't have the words to describe it. And you need those words and even call it like a formula to also get a yes, right?
Yes.
Do it in a way that somebody else understands and you have buy-in. But then there's the piece where usually through step 1 and step 2, that's where these limiting beliefs start coming up. A lot of people ask me, a lot of women ask, well, why don't we start with it? Everybody says, start with mindset. Well, you're kind of not ready. You almost need to start getting clear on what you want. And you said it, get clear on what you want. You start to articulate it. And then it's, oh my God, can I actually do this?
Yeah, you don't even know some of the mind trash, or as I call them, expensive thoughts that live in your head.
You don't even know the expensive thoughts, right? Until you started to get into it. And then it's like so loud, it's there. And as a coach, I'm like, perfect. Like you are primed and ready, not because it's necessarily scaring you, but you know what they are. Right. And then the last piece is actually what a lot of women start with, and that's the actual delivery. So you think about, and I think executive presence, communication style, it's critical, but it's actually the last piece. Like once you've done those first 3 things, like I am always blown away and happy for women at how much more like ready and prepared they are. And this is all about actually being prepared, right? How ready and prepared they are, that it just flows more easily, even if you haven't had an executive presence coach or looked at your verbal and nonverbal cues. They're important because even Forbes, Harvard Business Review, they have all these articles about how women undermine themselves when they do speak up. So that's an important piece, but that preparation helps straight off the bat. Right. So what are some of the tips? Well, actually, let me pause right there before I dive into your second question.
No, my question is yeah. So the tips are awesome. And I also now my brain is thinking like, what are maybe some of the, I really hesitate to use the word blunders. Because I don't think that's the right word, but you just talked about like, how do we actually deliver the ask? Like, maybe you can cover this in your tips, but like, what are just some of the things that you see women do that aren't effective, that maybe they've been told to do or conditioned to do when they make an ask? And what would be a more powerful way for them to make an ask? So maybe you can kind of talk about your tips that way.
Yeah. So some of the blunders to start are actually even the inverse of the frame, right? Not being clear on what you want, not actually thinking about the words to describe it, letting your fear, guilt in the way, and then the actual style. So it's interesting. It's almost like my own history. I realized those were the mistakes and blunders I was making to then flip it on its head to go, how can this come from an empowering place? But when women speak up, there are a couple of things. Each of those 4 pieces play into it, because if you're not clear, even when you say what you want, somebody can't understand you. So I'll give you an example of, think about somebody just jumps on a Zoom, right? I used to be able to say, like, you walk into a room and you blurt out an ask, and somebody's going, wait, where are you coming from? Maybe we're working on 5 different things.
That's good.
That's when the mind, if there isn't clarity, the mind starts making assumptions, and assumptions are usually wrong. So that's where we have these misses and mere understandings. So the lack of the clarity and the succinctness is really a big blunder. The other thing too is, I think caveats are great in explaining context, but it also could be, well, this hasn't been done before, or maybe this can't be done, or maybe you won't say yes, or maybe you're busy. Like those things undermine yourselves. Get rid of them. Like scrap them. If you find yourself doing it, chuck them out the door, because
those are like those little pre-qualifiers, right?
Pre-qualifiers.
Or like, oh, I don't know if I should ask, or apologizing. Is that the kind of ones you're talking about? Is like, just bracket those and just like, don't say them.
Yeah. And I get so passionate about it, because those, if those come out of our mouth, they're really giving the other person a reason to say no.
Mm-hmm.
So those pre-qualifiers are really, really big blunders. Another one that I see is once an ask is delivered, starting to talk about other things. Just be done. Let somebody else.
So hard for extroverts to give the silence, isn't it? Make an ask and be quiet.
Yeah. Otherwise, you undermine yourself. You could talk about other things.
I'll just sit with that one for a minute, because like, give us a like or drop us a heart if y'all ever done that. And we're all taking a sip of our coffee going, I've totally felt, I just really want to validate that. I think that's so important, is how many of us are nervous about an ask. So we get up the courage, we make the ask, and then we just don't allow for the silence and the space for the person to make a thoughtful response or consider our ask, and we get nervous. So then we kind of either walk it back or, put one of those qualifiers back in. So I just think that's so important. I just really wanted to pause there. That's so good.
So when we talk, we want to add to that too, because as we touch, fear and guilt there is in asking, that's where that comes from, as you mentioned. But what we've also got to remember is when we then share something with somebody else, they probably need a few minutes to process it.
Mm-hmm.
If they do not respond immediately, that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. Yes. That silence does trigger all that fear, but even put ourselves in the other person's shoes. You receive an ask, you might want to think about it for a bit, right? That's okay.
Silence,
right? Maybe even a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love it. Any other tips? And we're watching the chat. So if y'all have questions about maybe an ask that you're wanting to make, maybe it's, do I ask? And this is what Jacqueline can ask, what I'm thinking about. Do I tailor my ask differently for like salary asks versus boundary setting asks versus you talked about getting your child a spot in the play, whatever. And I've had to do that with daycare when my daughter was young. So yeah, tell me about do we change our approach for different types of asks or just say more, or is it kind of the same framework?
It's the same framework. And here's the really cool thing I've realized about the framework is there's a framework that helps you prepare and build an ask, but it's actually also a series of questions where you learn to ask yourself the questions first. Mm-hmm. So that's an important piece because women aren't tapping into our inner knowledge enough. So it helps us also trust ourselves and extract the words to then be able to deliver it, to actually have the order of the words. And from there, once you go through the system, you can actually play with it to tailor your ask. And I'm thinking about, there were 32 women I was coaching at Armanino. They were talking through the different partners and directors they work with about, well, how do you tailor your ask? And again, this goes for playgroup or business. Mm-hmm. And then that's about knowing your audience, right? Is your audience the type where you come in and you need to get right to your ask immediately and then explain where you're coming from? Or do you need to lead with where you're coming from and then do the ask? And so that's another piece of the preparation is, who are you talking to? What's going to be important? And then figuring out, like I always say, it's truly in the program, it's literally, we pull the words and then we put them in a formula that you could literally deliver right after. But then it's knowing your audience. So there is some tailoring to it.
I love it. Okay. Yeah. So 2 questions. The first answer will be quick, and then we'll talk about the second answer. The first question is I've seen recently you sharing a vision about women asking in the world. So I'd love for you to repeat it here and then tell us, like, what sort of results can we get from making the ask? Like, inspire us with maybe some things that we don't even think about, not only for our own personal benefit, but like, how have you seen families benefit, companies benefit? So yeah, say more about that.
Yeah. Oh my God. My mind just got like so many downloads. I feel like I need to write this down. Can you repeat the first question again? I literally got so many hits of the results. I just went,
your vision statement for women and asking, and it's so powerful. And I just want you to repeat it. Then I'll ask you the second question again.
Even I get chills thinking about it. I get kind of choked up because it's a big one. It's my own like vulnerability. I'm literally on a mission to create a new normal. I think there's too many challenges in the world that women feel that they cannot ask. And I want to create a new normal where women are not only equipped, but comfortable. Mm-hmm. I can see myself like down tears, asking for what they want and to get past all of that mental gunk. Right. And it's a piece too, where some people say, well, what about men? I'm like, it's not an either or. I think there just needs to be a place where women are behind. Mm-hmm. Right. And we need to come forward more to be able to do this. I think fundamentally everybody deserves to come from a place of asking for anything that they want, but I'm on a mission to help more women do that. And it does lead into a lot of the results, because I'll think about, again, the 32 women at Armanino. Within weeks after, a couple of them got like promotions right off the bat. One of them got a 25% pay raise, which was $40K. And typically with a promotion, the average pay raise is 3%. She got 25%.
And y'all, coming from HR, and I know I see some HR people on here, y'all know that that is not normal. Like, a lot of companies have salary caps at like 15% is all they'll give you at the max. So that's amazing. I just want to validate that statistic.
Yeah. And she had said, and I've got the testimonial up, it's like the way that she laid out the plan using the power of the ask. Her boss said to her, this was the easiest case for promotion he's literally ever put forward. Awesome. And I'm like, I'm still cheering for her in the background, and she's thriving. But you even talk about the family piece. I think about my own situation, other families, the fact that I am able to ask my husband for support when I need it at times, or even being able to teach my daughter. I mean, she's only at this point 10 months old, but she's going to be raised in a way of like, hey, what do you need right now? Right? There's emotions, but what do you need? How do you ask for it? There's an empowering piece. And as I talk and work with other organizations, because this can be done on an individual and an org level, there are some organizations that I think they're afraid to teach women to ask for what they want because they're afraid they can't do it, like fulfill it, or they'll leave. But it's actually the opposite, because I saw this when I was running my own teams at Deloitte. If you empower women to ask for what they want, not only do they become more engaged, they become more innovative. There's a freedom of thought and a way of doing things that actually everybody levels up, and then they become role models for others. So as we start to ask for what we want, we become that expander. If you know Lacey Phillips, or the 4-minute mile of, oh my God, that's doable. And more women, start asking, because in the simplest sense, it could even be, you need information for a project you're working on.
Yes.
Right. It's these tiny little things and the big things.
I love it. I love reframing that, because I have clients too who have literally told me, Kelli, I really don't know if we can do this webinar topic, because I have a similar kind of webinar topic, because because then women might just get empowered to ask for stuff, and we can't give them all the raises they're going to ask for. And I'm like, it's so much more than that. So I love how you said that. And it's so counterintuitive. It's the little things. It's asking for clarification. It's asking for help. It's asking for more instruction. Like, it's just so much more. So thank you for validating that.
What's another one to look at it? And it cracks me up. I don't know about you, but when you live things, sometimes other people reminding you of what you're doing is that story. And it's like, I stayed with Deloitte for 16 years because I was able to ask for what I wanted and navigate it. And in ways where, for example, with one role, when I was moving back from London, we rewrote the whole thing, and it ended up being not only better suited for me, but actually what the business needed to have sustainability in the way we were building Deloitte Private. So this ability to ask and change things, like, it really does help everybody thrive and find their place in it and their way of doing things, versus, all right, here's what somebody told me to do, and then it doesn't always work. So you can actually have women stay a lot longer, because look at the Great Resignation right now too. And what's happening with women.
Absolutely. Okay, so to close this out, now's your last chance, if you're watching, to get in your questions and we can answer them live. Jacqueline, what do you feel like is one thing that you and I haven't talked about yet that you feel like is really important for women to know about asking? I know, I'll put you on the spot.
It's okay. It's just that my mind comes up with so many, and also being excited.
And for all you Enneagram nerds out there, her and I are both Enneagram teachers, and she's a 7 and I'm a 5. And so that's why her brain is like, all the ideas, which one do I grab and pick?
My own growth is like the pause and the answering of it, because there are two things, if I may share. One is, fundamentally, I believe we should ask for anything we want and feel deserving of it. And coming from that place, it's kind of like the Nike, just do it. Just start somewhere. We've all got to start. And you mentioned it, the small asks first. The second one is, there's a difference between knowing what to do and how to actually do it. And I think that's where I love how the Power of the Ask program comes in, is we can go out in the world and be told kind of what to do, which is a situation I think a lot of us have been in generally, but knowing actually how to do it, that it gets you to that end result faster and actually becomes a very comfortable second nature habit. It's different. It takes practice and accountability really and support. And that's the stuff that took me so long to figure out and master, that I really enjoy helping other women figure out and ingrain for themselves. So in other words, I encourage you to go out and start doing this, because you know what to do. And you're ready to really ingrain and be ready of like the, how do I do this? You know, better, faster, easier. If you can, like, reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Like, as you said, I'm really on a mission for all of us to start asking for what we want.
And I think it's so important. It's asking, you know, I used to be in human resources. And so I have a insight into just a lot of money and salary and just job related asks, time off, negotiating packages, those sorts of things. And I think women often wait until they get to that place where like, oh, I have to negotiate my salary. Like, I love what you're saying. Like, let's just go out and practice some small things. Like I tell women all the time, go call the cable company and negotiate your cable bill. Like, low stakes environment where you really got to use your negotiation skills. Because if you've ever done that, it's kind of sticky.
Like, it could literally be as simple as like, you get the wrong order. Ask for what you wanted.
Something.
Like,
I tell them to ask for a better table at a restaurant. Like, if you don't want to sit at a table and you want to sit in a booth, ask. Like, little things.
And it's funny because when people do sometimes say, how did you do that? Those are the ones where I'm like, it's all in the power of the ask. I literally just asked for it. So yeah, start with the small stuff, graduate to the big.
I love just that mantra. And I hope y'all just like put it on a Post-it and like stick it up somewhere. It's all in the power of the ask. Like, everything you want is on the other side of your ask. It's all in the power of the ask. So Jacqueline, tell us about the power of the ask, because I believe it's taking new life today in an online framework. So tell us where to find Power of the Ask and where they can find you.
Yeah. So we can all do this. So there's a website, getpoweroftheask.com, but I also actually decided to shorten it. Get POTA, P-O-T-A. The other one was a mouthful. So get POTA. And you're right. It is taking a new light. So I have been doing workshops, one-on-one coaching, and working in corporations for years, delivering this live, and it is now available in a self-directed format for many reasons. Women are busy. Right? There's a price point that it actually makes it much more approachable. And I have probably spent about the last year recording videos, taking all the case studies, anything I would ever bring into the live sessions and program and training into this online self-directed version. Plus, we have live opportunities once a week for actual coaching with me. So you can actually go through the program, ingrain asking, learn how on your own time. And then I'm still available for coaching. So yes, we did a beta launch like in the fall, and today's actually the first day it's available to the wider public that I'm talking about it versus just my network coming to me. So it's a big day for me and something I had asked the universe for. So it's finally here.
And here it is.
I know. So please, and if you have any questions, just please reach out. Maybe even practicing your ask is reaching out to me or Kelli with your questions. Start there and we'll figure out how to get you what you need. So I would love to see you in the program.
Yes, absolutely. Go make sure that you connect or follow Jacqueline on LinkedIn, and she's Power of the Ask on Instagram as well, correct?
Yes, I am.
And then getpota.com. I love that. That's so easy.
Right? I credit that actually to my business manager. She just started shrinking it to POTA. And I was like, that's powerful. The other thing too is, Kelli, I will give you a code that you can drop into your LinkedIn or something, because it's also, you know, International Women's Month, that maybe for the month of March, they can get a discount to encourage them to.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll drop it in the comments. So what we'll do is I'll just have Jacqueline come back after we're done. She'll drop the link and then drop the discount code, and then y'all will have it. So thank you for joining us. And if you're watching on replay, like, still ask your questions. Her and I will be monitoring the questions. We'll go back in and answer them. So your time has not passed. You can still make the asks. And so you can drop them right here in the comments, or you can reach out to either one of us behind the scenes. But Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us. I hope all of the women go out there and embrace the power of the ask for this month, for International Women's Day. And what we would even love even more is if you share your wins with us.
You were reading my mind. Please share.
Please share. It inspires everyone else to do the same. So thank you, everyone. And I will see y'all hopefully on my International Women's Day webinar. I'm doing a free leadership masterclass next Tuesday in place of a live. So make sure that you join me there. It's kellyraythompson.com/IWD webinar. And I'll also drop that link. So make sure you join me there next Tuesday and I will see you then. Bye, everyone.